There's a lot of people that are disappointed in the Infiniti Q50 because over the last 10 or 11 years, the design has changed very, very little overall. But there are a few key differences from 2014, 2015 Q50s into the 2016, 2017 and beyond. There's been some changes, although subtle. There have been some changes, so I'm going to point out a couple of the key ones here. This is another viewer requested video, by the way, so keep those requests coming because these are some of the more enjoyable ones to make because I actually know that people want to know this information. So keep them coming. Keep the requests, keep the questions coming. Starting with the obvious, of course, the first generation Q50, the 2014-2015 came equipped with the, I would say, overrated 328 horsepower, 3.7 liter V6. They made, I guess they were rated at like 260 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. That's mated with the 7-speed automatic transmission. Unfortunately, no manual transmission, at least in the US. 2016 and beyond, they moved to the 3.0 liter twin-turbo V6 at an underrated 300 horsepower, just shy of 300 foot-pounds of torque, so a little more torquey than the 3.7 naturally aspirated engine. And side by side on the dyno, the 3.0T would make a little bit more horsepower as well in factory stock form. One key factor that people tend to forget when they compare the first gen with the second gen Q50s is the gear ratio. The 3.7 liter first gen Q50s came with a 3.13 final drive gear ratio, where the newer model Q50s came with a 2.93, something like that. So when people talk about the 3.7 liter Q50 being faster than 3.0T in stock form, stock versus stock, it's a lot to do with the gear ratio. Even though the 3.0T is making a little bit more power and a little bit more torque, the 3.7 can keep up with it because it has a slightly more aggressive gear ratio, just slightly, but it's enough to make a difference. One key difference that everybody seems to know about by now is that the first gen Q50 tended to have a little bit of a weak transmission. Not the transmission necessarily itself, but the valve body is known to be prone to failure. It gives out at any given point with no warning. Some cars go forever with no issues. Some people have a failed valve body at 50, 60,000 miles. I can't give you the specifics as to why the 3.0T 7-speed automatic transmission is a little bit stronger in terms of its ability to hold up to horsepower and torque over the 3.7 7-speed automatic. They're essentially the same transmission, but there has to be some internal differences. If you guys happen to know, leave it down in the comments below what the exact differences or what the exact upgrades were that allow the 3.0T 7-speed auto to hold more torque. You know, in the 3.7, if you start getting up to that 400 wheel horsepower and over 300 foot-pounds of torque, there can be a little bit of slippage. The transmission struggles to hold up. The 3.0T holds well over 400 horsepower, no problem. A lot of people are on the factory transmission with no issues making 500 plus wheel horsepower. So pretty significant differences right there, just in the transmission and the engine. Of course, the 3.0T is much more, it likes modifications more. You can pull more power out of a turbo engine with a lot less. A 3.7 being able to breathe a little bit better with drop-in filters or cold air intake, test pipes and an exhaust and a tune with a good tuner is going to make 340 wheel horsepower. Whereas a 3.0T with lower downpipes and a tune, essentially that's it. You're going to be up around 400 horsepower. It's pretty impressive with just simple modifications, simple bolt-on modifications and a tune. You can really liven up that 3.0T. So that's really the major difference in terms of performance between the two. Otherwise, a lot of the changes came in subtle, cosmetic upgrades or updates. Both the Q50 non-sport and the sports got a facelift going into 2018, a little more aggressive bumper on both actually years. So I like the updates that they made to the non-sport bumpers in the newer models. The sport or the red sport bumper is really sweet. I think it's one of the best attributes of the newer Q50s. I think there was a rear bumper redesign probably in 2018 or 19 as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And I think newer taillights came along too shortly after that. Very, very minor interior updates were made to the steering wheel and the shifter knob. That's basically it. I think the center console and the infotainment center area is basically the same all the way through to maybe even 2024. I'd have to take a look. The upholstery might be slightly different, probably not all that different in the non-sports, but between the sport models, the older sports and the newer sports, slightly different. And I think that's kind of what bugs a lot of people too, particularly in the 3.0T guys, because the 2016 and the 2023s and 2024s are almost the same car. Well, okay, 2018s to the 2023s are basically the same car in terms of appearance. But even getting in a car, if you get in a 2014 and then you jump into 2023, the interiors really aren't all that different. I mean, the changes are so subtle. I mean, you're not going to get an older Q50 and then, think you need an upgrade solely on the interior. It's not that much different. It's not that much better. I mean, if I was driving a 2018 or 2019 Q50 right now, I'd have no reason really to upgrade to a 2024. I wouldn't do it. I'm not really one of those guys that gets all that upset about the lack of design changes in the Q50, just because the car's only been around for 10 or 11 years at this point, right? I mean, from late 2013 when the Q50s were running off the assembly line to now 2024. It's not that long of a period to see dramatic changes. There's a lot of cars on the road that go 10, 11 years without a significant design update, right? So it really doesn't bother me all that much. I think it's a little bit disappointing that you can look at a 2014 Q50 and then a 2024 Q50 and the interior is almost the same. I mean, the differences are so subtle and so minute that it just really, that doesn't make sense to me. But I can understand the minor facelift changes and stuff throughout the years. I think they did a decent job. I think the Q50s now look better than they did originally, which is really all I could ask for from a manufacturer, is to keep improving the design, especially improving a design that was already pretty nice. Sleek lines, a really nice profile, a nice rear end, a nice front end from the front angle, maybe not necessarily the non-sports, but they're easy to modify. There's a lot of aftermarket support and you can really make these things look good. So I'm still a Q50 fan, but I hope this kind of sheds a little bit of light on some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head as far as how these cars have changed and been updated over the years and what some of the differences are between that first gen and some of these newer Q50s. Like I said, if you got any other video ideas or any questions that may be able to be turned into a video, I would certainly like to hear what you got. So leave them down in the comments below. I appreciate you guys watching this one. Thank you very much for the continued support. More stuff coming for the channel, so I hope you guys will stick around, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again. See you in the next one.